Hello everybody, how you all doing? This is Cams with another episode of Acoustic Guitar I.O. I've just come through from the kitchen with a cup of tea in hand, ready to talk into the microphone and introduce another interview for you. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping first though, if you would be so kind. I first of all would like to say hello, because it's been a very long time since I last published an interview. The last one will have been with Turnstone, so I hope you listened to and enjoyed that one. And I'll tell you why I've been so lackadaisical. I started a new business back at the end of October last year when my post office business sold after 7 years of having had it on the market. So as you will imagine, I was very happy with that. In July last year, I started working as a social media and content creator for a friend of mine who runs a local bistro in Brodick called Crofter's Music Bar. And I enjoyed it so much that I decided that that's the kind of direction that I would like to take for my new business. So as of the 1st of November 2019, I became a full-time social media marketer and content creator. Between then and now, I have been studying, I've been taking online courses, I have been looking at mentorship programs, I've been working on a business plan, formulating thoughts and ideas, and it's been a very busy time. So the guitar content has kind of slipped off the radar a wee bit. However, having gone through the process of figuring out exactly what kind of form I would like this business to take, I have decided that I would be crazy not to try and employ my love of guitar into this new business in some form or fashion. So what's happened is I have been working hard over the last week. Today is the 25th of May 2020. So over the last week I have been changing all of my social media presences for the new business, which is called Cam's Social Media Marketing, to target my dream audience. So it's not going to take an Einstein to figure out who my dream audience might be. Yes, it is guitar makers and guitar players. I have a lot of contacts in that world, as you may already have gathered from some of the interviews that I have put out. And it would be insane for me not to try and work in the industry that I love. So that is precisely what I am going to be doing. To that end, I will be looking at some of the content that I have on my hard drive that's been sitting there, some of it since June last year at the RMMGA gathering. So it's almost a year old, some of this content. But I am still going to put it out because it's valuable content and for the most part it's evergreen. So that's what will be happening. So that is why this week I have been working on my interview that I recorded with Rosie Heydenrych from Turnstone Guitars. I met Rosie at the Halifax gathering in October 2019. The Halifax gathering is an annual gathering called HB, which stands for Hebden Bridge, and it's run by the participants and moderators on the Acoustic Soundboard.co.uk guitar forum. I have many friends on there. They're all amazing people. And last year was my second trip. I believe it was the 10th gathering. So it was called HB10. And that was when I got to meet Rosie for the first time. I also recorded some other interviews whilst at that gathering, so look out for those coming soon. I won't give away the names, I'll keep it as a surprise. But meeting Rosie was one of the big draws for me to go to the gathering that year because I'd heard so much about her. I know that some of the participants at the Halifax gathering know Rosie quite well and also own a guitar or two of Rosie's. And so it was a real treat to get to meet her and her husband, Carl. Carl is involved in quite a big way in Rosie's business and is responsible for some of the photography and other social media content, I believe, that comes from Turnstone guitars. And it was a real treat to get to talk to Carl as well. In fact, we enjoyed a really nice dinner on the second night, and we had a great conversation, including some book recommendations, one of which was Sapiens. And I finished that book a couple of months ago and really enjoyed it. I can't remember the author's name. It's Yusuf something. No, it's gone. You can look it up. Anyway, so moving on to the interview, I did set up cameras and I did record a video interview. However, on watching it back, I'm afraid that my lack of experience is evident in the quality of the video. First of all, it was seeking focus, and I believe it's because the A7 III, unbeknown to me at the time, does not maintain its facial focus capture when the camera's set to 4K. That will explain why the video was seeking. And also the positioning of the cameras was very, very poor. And so Mahid, as they say in Scotland, kept getting into the shot that was pointing at Rosie. And so for that reason, I've decided not to put the video out. I'm going to put this one out as audio only. Now that is a shame because there is a part of the recording where we look at one of Rosie's guitars. But it's a learning curve, right? And I want to acknowledge my failures and not let them prevent my putting out any content at all. I want to try and learn from my failures and grow as a content creator. So I will now cease with my talking and I will pass you over to the interview with Rosie Heydenrych. So I'm sitting with Rosie Heydenrych?
Almost, yeah. So I pronounce it Heydenrych.
Heydenrych, okay.
But Carl's mother pronounces it Heydenrych. So I'm free. Do as you will, and I'll.
So Rosie from Turnstone Guitars.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you come up with Turnstone?
So, well, going back to the pronouncing my surname issue, it became kind of apparent to me that I didn't really feel like I wanted it to be named after myself, and I think I just wanted it to be something slightly separated. And so I was kind of, when I was thinking about starting a guitar company and what it might be named after, I started to think, well, maybe symbolically after a bird that you can see in England. So I started to research the birds that you see, obviously seeing many of them, but kind of looking through the list of the birds that you can see on British shores, woodlands. I came across a bird called Turnstone, and reading the story behind it, you see them on British shores, and the reason that they're called turnstone birds is because they actually turn the stones over on the beaches to find food. So if you're walking along the beach, you can actually see them. They're usually scuttling back and forth, as the waves come in and out, and they're probably smallish birds, but look fairly, you wouldn't probably notice them from anything else, but when they open their wingspan, they have this lovely kind of streak of white going across it that just, looks absolutely amazing. And I just kind of fell in love with the bird and the story behind it, and I just thought Turnstone, it's a nice kind of rolls off the tongue. I can associate that maybe with, a guitar, and then obviously thinking about the bird and what I would want my headstock to be, because traditionally you inlay your name across it, and then I started to envision, seeing the turnstone bird with the white streak across its wings, that if I can carve into my headstock the symbol of a bird and actually use my chisel to remove material to sculpt out the wings, if you have veneer in between the front veneer, the mid veneer, and obviously the neckwood, you get three colours that actually define the shape and the colour of the wing. So it all just kind of worked nicely in my head, so yeah. Gave it a go.
That's a lovely story. I haven't heard of that type of bird before.
Yes. I think they're migratory, so you see them, I think, in the winter time, and then they go elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a guitar here with you.
Yes.
Would you be able to show us the headstock? And
yeah. So this one is a custom order, so there's something slightly different in this headstock, which relates to the person that I built it for, but just to focus in on the bird. So that's the kind of example of an ash neck with red. So a common theme throughout this guitar is the use of red wood, red stones, and in the rosette. But yeah, so the body of the bird, the wings whittled out with the red going into the V of the body and the mid section of the wing.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And the stones, the inlay?
So the stones actually represent a story that when the customer that I built this for got in touch with me, we actually met in a pub near my workshop for the first time, and he kind of went on to tell me a story about, it's really, really sad, that he lost his wife actually very recently from that point, and he wanted to commemorate her in the guitar. And the idea of which, on the face of it can seem a bit unsettling, but he actually wanted the ashes of his wife. There's a company that puts ashes into gemstones, which they do for jewellery and things like this, and he wanted the idea of putting it into the headstock to commemorate his wife. And he's reasonably young, so I think kind of it's talking to him and kind of understanding the situation. This is kind of a bit of closure for him to be able to move on. So, what maybe seems an initially unusual request, but actually kind of getting to know him and being able to talk through this and work this out with him is actually, if I can help, give some closure to him and provide him with something that he'll enjoy hopefully for the rest of his life. I think that's it's something really, it's been a really interesting and humbling experience to kind of be involved in.
I think that's a beautiful story, because it allows him to create something.
Exactly.
And it allows you to create something from which you can then create something musically.
Exactly.
And it can stay with them, as you say. That's a beautiful story. And I see you've got your Veneers.
Yeah, so
in the back.
Try and carefully turn it around. Yeah, there's a big radiator right there, so we'll keep an eye on that. So that's back of the headstock. So the running design concept, as I said, is red. So we've got the puduk, which is naturally that red colour, and then that's followed down to the neck, which is an English ash neck with bog oak puduk laminate. And the back of the guitar is a lovely example of quite a dark version of ancient black oak or bog oak, which I've used a fair amount. I've built quite a number of guitars with this now, so I'm kind of getting to know what its character is and how to get the best out of it. And English woods is kind of one of the things that I'm pretty interested in right from the start, from when I began, coming across an English walnut back and side set and actually seeing, wow, there is an English wood that can be used in guitars. And then that kind of then that got me thinking, well, what other back and sides could I use? So cherry, sycamore, apple, a whole ton of them. But then that got me thinking, well, what could I potentially use for a neck? Ash, sycamore, walnut, cherry. And then, well, what could I use for a soundboard? And the soundboard was initially the hardest thing to find, because we don't really grow. Well, we have Sitka spruces, we have firs, but it's more, they're not native, so they grow in this country, but they've been introduced. The only native, technically softwood that we have in England is yew, which I have subsequently used as a soundboard. But actually finding kind of something of the the more traditional properties was initially quite difficult. But I found the first English soundboard that I found was a Western red cedar top, and then I've gone on to actually try cypress, English grown. So and then that spawned into, well, what can I use for the bracing, what can I use for the blocks? And so then I developed an idea to do a guitar that was all made up, every wooden component made out of English wood. So that developed what I call the E-series model. So if somebody wants an all English guitar, then I'd say, well, that's an E-series guitar, but within the spec of the models that I produce.
That red and black goes together perfectly.
Yeah, it's nice, because when you envisage it in your head, it's quite a while until it comes to fruition. So you're like, I think this is going to work, but until you actually see it, it's just something that's in your head. So. And this rosette is something that I've done for the first time. This is resin dyed maple burr, so the dye is actually drawn through the maple burr with a vacuum. So initially when I was thinking about doing a dyed burl rosette, I was going to do the dyeing myself, but when you actually look into staining woods, and because with rosettes you set it but you sand it, and if you sand through a top level stain, then it will disappear basically. So I did some tests and realised that I wasn't going to be able to do that, so I started researching this resin, stabilised resin. I think it's resin, I can't remember the name, but yeah, it's a technical process and it works. So I bought it, but then I had to kind of lay it out how I wanted it, and so that's the idea behind that. And then the red, again, Purdue fret markers. So that's it. Yeah.
And you've got some interesting cleats on the back there.
Yeah, so that is essentially kind of just a little reinforcement for the back join. Which obviously on this example you've got your back strip, but also is kind of aesthetic as well. Like I pay quite close attention to the stuff that goes on inside, and I kind of, although a lot of people say, well, you can't see it, why spend so much time on stuff that you can't see, but it's not, it's an element of just wanting people to see the care that's been taken, but equally I do it because I think it builds a better guitar at the end of the day. I don't think I'd do it if I didn't think that it did that. So. That's
the Steve Jobs aesthetic. You paint the insides as well.
Exactly, yeah. Put it in a nice box as well.
Yeah. That's absolutely gorgeous. So, did you have a background in guitar building or a background in woodworking, or how did you come to it?
A background in woodworking would be a very tenuous link in that I did GCSE CDT, it was called at the time. So that was as close to woodwork, to a further education that I could do at school, but that was purely structural, like designing furniture, MDF, using bandsaws, no actual hand tool work, because there just wasn't an option to do it. But that was school. I left that. I actually started playing guitar when I was 17. Right. I originally, younger than that, my school instrument was a saxophone, and I just massively struggled with the physical effort that it took, and I would often, you have to build up lung capacity to be able to play it. And my sister actually played the classical guitar. That was her instrument. And I remember seeing somebody play guitar and just thinking that just looks so relaxing to play. And as a saxophone player, I really kind of appreciated that. And I just picked up my sister's guitar one day and started playing, I think, E minor and G were the chords that I knew. And I just played it over and over and over again, to the point where that kind of developed to the point where my dad was just like, should we get you a guitar? So we went to the music shop and bought me like a little guitar that it just took me, when you get home from school, I'm playing it, and completely different to the saxophone, which was kind of a bit of a chore, because you have to tick off your weekly practice roster, which usually I'd have to come up with an excuse to the teacher to explain why I hadn't practiced this. I was like coming home, playing it, so it just, it was the instrument for me, and that carried on into university, playing in bands and doing things, other musical things like radio shows. I joined what's called in those days a street team, where you go to gigs, you'd be part of the band street team, where you get people to sign up to their email list, because that was kind of the way that they would build up followings in the pre-social media era. Yeah. So I would go along to gigs and have a clipboard. I say, do you want to join their mailing list? And saw tons of acts that went on to become pretty big, and that was kind of my musical and my tenuous woodworking background. But I was always pretty good with my hands, so I kind of knew that I had a hand skill, as it were. But went to university, studied business, went into the world of work, kind of through not really knowing the right way to go, but falling into jobs, which then kind of progressed from there, which I, massively enjoyed, but it kind of got to a stage with my career where I was kind of thinking, what's the long-term future? And just a number of things happened that kind of made me think, well, I at least want to start proactively exploring my creative side again, because I felt like I was losing that. So I did a number of things. I did a music production course because I wondered maybe because of my musical background, and I did a bit of recording when I was at university of the songs that I would write. Maybe that might be an avenue for me to try. I did an evening course in that. But that kind of just, again, didn't link up. I think because the computer age, part of the thing with the office job is just sitting at a computer all day. I felt like I wanted to be moving a bit. So again, I was like, I'm not sure if that's it. And then it just so happened that a guitar making course was advertised in London at the London Metropolitan University while I was working there. Well, I was working at a charity about 20 minutes away, and I just signed up just to kind of see what would happen. But that also, just remembering back, is it linked because for one of my birthdays, my mum she had bought off a friend a 12-string guitar for me, which when she gave, I was like blown away, and I looked in and it said, I think it was called Lakeland, and I've since researched and I couldn't find whether it still existed or not, but it said made in England, and I was like, what? So they still make guitars? I was a Taylor girl. I didn't really know much about the handmade guitar market, but that was the first time I was like, wow, they still actually make guitars in England. And then that got me researching luthiers, and that kind of opened up the luthier world. I was reading about like Patrick Eggle, looking at his acoustic guitars, and then starting to understand a little bit about the woods. And so that was kind of, I think that happened before the evening class, and that's where I kind of started to make that association with this could be just something that I might be interested in doing. And then when the evening class came up, I was working full-time in London, so it was kind of an opportunity where I could still pay the bills, do my work, but start to steadily do something that was slightly different. And then it just kind of blew up from there. So I did, about a year into that, I started to really think, okay, I think this might be something that I really want to delve a bit further in. So I spoke to my course tutor and said, can I get a bit more experience on weekends with you? I feel like I want to learn more. And he put me in touch with a lady on Denmark Street, who I then subsequently went and saw her, and she started to allow me to come on weekends. So I was doing that in the evening course, and it all kind of then spawned onto there that I did. So a year into that, I was at a guitar show, and I picked up a business card of a maker in London, and he was advertising for an intern, and then I went along to that and got that internship. So that's when I went part-time with my work. So it was all kind of trying to work out a way that I could get, because obviously there's so much to learn, and I knew that. And they have actually a degree, well, they did at the time, a degree course at the Met. And I ummed and ahed whether, should I go back to university and do the thing, but I just couldn't. I was already paying off my student debt from the previous one. I couldn't and I also just felt that wasn't going to give me the ultimate experience that I needed to really get the really refined hand skills to give it a good go. So yeah, that's how it all started to come into fruition. And then so I did the internship for 2 years part-time, and from there that kind of gave me enough to open my own shop. And then it's still part-time, developing my skills, starting to go out to my first shows. And it was actually, because we were obviously at the Acoustic Soundboard meet, my very first show I met Leo, and he put a post on Acoustic Soundboard about me and my guitars, and that was like the first time that anybody had ever written about me. So I was like, Mum, Dad, look at this. So yeah, that's where that's why I've known these guys ever since the beginning. So I like to come along and see what guitars they've got and chat guitars and all that kind of stuff.
That's an amazing story. It's interesting. I'm a bit older than you, I would think, and I'm kind of making that leap now into creativity rather than business stuff. And it's very liberating, but it's also quite scary. Yes. There must have been a point in time when you made that decision, right, I'm going to go full time now. What was that like for you?
Yeah,
scary. Really scary.
And you can think about it like ideologically, but when it actually happens, it's different. Especially when you have outgoings and all the serious, boring stuff. Like when I initially went into the part-time internship, I was kind of like, this is it, here I go, free creative soul, I'll make it work, I'll get by, I'll do because initially I was thinking I'm going to sack in so I had a full-time job, and I approached them to say, I would like to try, if you're happy with it, I'd like to see if I can do this on a part-time basis. If it doesn't work, we can kind of obviously part ways, but if it does work, I've got the stability of an income while still being able to work 3 days. And I genuinely think if I had done the former idea, I don't think I would be here, because it's too difficult without a steady income to deal with that transition. So that my advice or my thoughts to people that come and ask me, like, how do I do this? I just say, try and just cover your costs, because if things in the financial department start going awry, then everything else is going to eventually start to impact, and you'll kind of get into this spiral that will be difficult to get out of, or at least be able to perform to your best when you're worrying about stuff like that. So if you can just get something that can tide you over, but still, work evenings, work around it until you get to a point where things start to pick up. And like you just, you mentioned when is the point to make that leap. And so I think I had been in my own workshop working part-time for almost 2.5 years, and I'd started to get the orders in. So initially, orders were ticking me over and kind of breaking even, but not really like just getting by basically for those years. But then as it started to progress, I was kind of equally getting to a stage where like I need to put in more time. Like I would maybe perhaps be taking away from what I can do in the future if I don't take that leap. So it was a real kind of way up, thinking, okay, well, I've got enough money, I can take a gamble for 6 months, that if I try to go full-time for 6 months and things don't pan out, I will then have to, reassess. But I think I have to do this just to see if I can, the additional time that I can put in as a full-time maker, then the momentum can start to get going. So it was a bit of a leap, but equally kind of a measured leap at the same time. But luckily it did happen the way that I'd hoped, that you're there more so you can produce more, so you can... my skills, I think, exponentially increased when I went full-time. So.
And how do you divide your time between making and networking and social media and all that kind of stuff? Do you have a strategy for that? I can't.
It's difficult, actually, because the making side, and I think in any business it's becomes your life, basically, because it is just all consuming. But I think with something like guitar making, the actual process of making them is so complex. You could easily have more than a full-time job just in the production side of things. So initially, when I was part-time, I had kind of the headspace to think about, a business plan and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And as I went full-time, I increasingly found it harder to want to dedicate time to that, because I wanted to put all the time into the guitars. And even now, it's kind of like so this year I actually did decide that I wanted to focus more on the processes and the guitars, basically improving all the things that I'm starting to say, okay, I want to, or, if something is just like, okay, that's, the process is not quite there, but you carry on because the time it takes for you to reevaluate that process takes time out of, the build. So you're obviously like, okay, I'll stick with that for now, but I think I need to come back and look at that. But this year I was like, no, I actually want to, really start to look at that. So I focused more consciously on the building, but then now that I am starting to think, okay, I need to start getting back into thinking about promoting the work. I'm always going to shows, so they're always kind of in the diary, but actually prioritising, thinking forward about, how much money am I going to maybe put into marketing, what shows am I going to do, but even your processes of dealing with customer inquiries and accounting. Like the accounting thing is like a current thing where, again, it's a bit like the processes. You're like, okay, I'll get by, I can do it, but it's not ideal. And that's with accounting for me, that needs to be reassessed to have a much clearer view of kind of what's going on and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's...
Would it be nice to get to a position where your profit margin was enough that you could actually bring other people in with these skills?
Yeah, I mean,
take care of that stuff for you and let you focus on...
True, yeah, and that's like a whole different ball game in itself, like bringing staff on, and especially with, I guess, very small scale luthier production is bringing. If you are making a large number of guitars, I think it's actually easier to bring people in than working on very custom bespoke. Bringing people up to the level that they need, that you can trust them with. Not just in the essence of being able to do the work to a standard that you would be happy with. So that's just like a whole different kettle of fish that I'm not quite well, apart from Carl. So my husband, he's now working part time with me. Good. So he's kind of going through a similar thing, that he's spending 2 days with me. He actually initially started working with me because one of the things that I wanted to do was start to bring the finish work in-house, and that is a whole nother sphere of knocking your head against the wall trying to understand the processes and the products that you should use. So when I initially decided that, okay, I'm going to have to do that because I need to be in control of that and understand it, that if we can do it together, and that can maybe be his element of... Because I think as well that's important to have, especially like in a husband and wife team, to have different dedicated roles. If he can do the finish work, but equally when we're learning the process together, I think especially with finish work is just having somebody else there to say what's happened here, like what's going on. So yeah, I mean with him that's working well so far, and that's the first time that I've been in that position to kind of have somebody working with me in that respect. So I
tried to bring my daughter on board as video editor.
Oh yeah.
So you were talking about that decision point when it comes, and I've been running a post office now for 12 years.
Oh, okay.
On the Isle of Arran.
Yeah.
Which was not
That's so cool.
the best idea. I didn't realise at the time. I thought it was going to be idyllic.
Yeah.
Scottish Island, little post office and all that, but it just didn't suit my temperament at all.
Really?
And I've been trying to get out for 7 years, trying to sell it on, and that's just happened this month.
Okay.
End of October is my last trading day.
Oh well, congratulations.
So the decision's kind of there now.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, and I'm getting into music. I mean, I've always played music, doing gigs and stuff. Trying to build up my teaching portfolio, so I'm doing quite a lot of private lessons.
Oh.
And I started doing this stuff, this recording, podcasts. And I mean, I've been in this guitar world for years and years and years. And I used to travel a lot, and then I kind of had a break when I started the post office. So that's probably why we'd never met, because last year was my first acoustic soundboard.
Oh, okay.
So I came along to that, and I'm levelling up. I'm buying more equipment. I'm trying to make my productions a bit more serious, but I'm sitting on so much content, and I have to edit it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've been hired by a friend of mine to do social media marketing for him.
Nice.
So I've got a little bit of income coming in whilst I'm practicing these skills, because there's a lot of video work, recording, audio, photography, and I love it. It's a really good opportunity. But so I think I'm kind of hitting the ground walking, not quite running.
Yeah. But I mean, this is probably like a pinnacle time for you right now, then, because if you're just about to put the sale in on the post office, this will be a bit like when I did it, and exponentially just having the time and the freedom without that. The burden of I almost felt like I was living a double life during that time, because I'd spend 3 days doing a different job, talking to staff about my colleagues about the work that we were doing, and then suddenly 2 days later I'm in a workshop like talking to a customer about a guitar. It was just like then in the end it just bizarre, really. But you have to tread that line. But I imagine now that you can let that finally, conclude, that to have the time and the freedom to put towards, getting those skills, as you say. It'll be an interesting time.
Because you said you've got Carl coming in to help you with some of your operational stuff. My wife has been supporting me by working at the post office to allow me to get off and start building up the other areas of my life that I want to be doing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And she's been amazing.
Yeah. Supportive partners are...
Yeah.
And with Carl, obviously, I would talk like all the time about the guitar stuff to eventually that he started, because before he wasn't interested, or not to say he wasn't interested, but the guitar making thing was my thing, and then I started to talk more about it, and it's actually interesting because because the array of skills is so widespread. Like there's parts of guitar making that actually I think he would probably be better at than me. Right. So he started, talking. Obviously, I was talking about it all the time, but finding common interests, and with a partner that kind of understand and encourage, and I guess that's another element of it as well. Like the ups and downs, having a support is invaluable. Yeah. I would say. So.
I would be struggling on my own, for sure. Yeah. But my daughter said no.
No.
She said yes initially, and then she's too busy. She's high school. She's going to music school at weekends. She's in a band. There's just not enough time for her. And I don't want to take her time away from her. I did offer her a partnership kind of thing. She's like, well, what's that going to get me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you never know. In time.
In time, perhaps, yeah. I'm just grateful for the opportunity at my age. I'm 48 coming up.
Oh, okay.
And it feels like I've been given another chance at happiness.
Yeah,
which I'm so
awesome.
excited about.
Yeah, and I'm not that familiar with your background story, but Carl was actually telling me, because you had, I think, a video that you spoke, which I haven't yet seen, but he watched it.
You did?
And he was, because when we saw you at the... when we checked in, he was like, "Oh, I know that guy. I saw his video.
Wow.
Like, he's such a nice guy." He maybe hasn't told you.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, he was quite taken with your story. And the guitar that you played at RMGGA for Neil. Yeah. I think he had commented on something, but again, he said something like, "Oh, I knew your story. I was really moved by it." Oh. So as I say, I'm not 100% familiar with, but Carl gave me a bit of a rundown, but. That's
you
kind
can
of
watch it afterwards.
Yeah, I will. But from what I understand, it's quite a story. So.
Well, music has been therapy for me.
Yeah.
I got my first guitar when I was recovering from an accident. That led me down this merry path.
Yeah, it's funny the twists and turns that music brings.
Yeah. So what's in the future, do you think? Where do you see yourself going? What are your goals?
My goals.
Where would you like to be? Well, you just got into TNAG, didn't you?
I did.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's my first dealer. So yeah, I mean, I started going further afield with my shows. So my sights are set, I guess, a bit wider than the UK. So America. Okay. I've done a few shows in Germany. So I think still, building the name. Getting people familiar with the Turnstone and kind of understanding what I do, the English word side of things, but equally, the traditional words and...
I love that.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I guess, about spreading the word, but equally, I'm really interested in kind of knowing what I can do from a processes and production element. When I started, I learned with all hand tools, thicknessing, hand planes. The only thing I had was a little bandsaw and a pillar drill. I think they were my main tools. So I started kind of bare bones, and I've progressed from there and started to develop, slightly more efficient ways of doing things. So that's kind of, but equally it's always a balancing act of keeping, things that you enjoy balanced with, producing on a level that is seen to be mildly efficient. So that's an interesting area for me, visiting other makers, seeing how they work, kind of their ideas. I mean, I'm a member of the EGB, which is the European Guitar Builders Association, and they hold symposium events. So I really do try to meet as many makers as I can and kind of understand their experiences, what led them to where they're at and how they work, and kind of the values, I guess, that they associate with their work, and kind of then that makes me reflect on where I want to go in the future, what's important to me. I was doing a talk. I gave a talk to the students at Newark College, and that made me kind of think about. I think I divided it up into like half of talk about my processes, but half about kind of your business and where you want to, as a new builder, kind of where you want to set your sights with as far as like what you define as success. So like obviously success is defined in completely, for different people it's a different thing. And for me, it kind of made me think, well, actually, what's my definition of success? And obviously you have to make a certain amount, make a living from this. But I think beyond that, I got into this because I wanted it to be passion driven and something, creative and fun. So beyond that point, I want to be guided by the things that I enjoy doing. So that was kind of, I guess, my thought process for underpinning where I want to go in future. I need a baseline. I mean, I'm kind of realistic that I want to be able to support my family. I would prefer not to have financial concerns. So, that does underpin things, I'm not going to lie. But beyond that, I'm not in it for anything more than that. And then I want to be guided by the creative side, the things that I enjoy. And then that may twist and turn as life throws its curveballs. But that's generally, I think, the underpinning of where I want to go.
Excellent. I love that. Yeah, passion driven. Looking for happiness, that's where it is for me. Just trying to make myself happy and be the best me that I can be.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my goal.
And when it all finishes, just think, well, I gave it a good go and I didn't waste it, so that's it.
Well, Rosie, thank you very much for sitting down with me.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
I look forward to hearing you play something.
Maybe.
A bit later on today.
We'll see. I've had a few ciders.
Thank you, Rosie.
All right. Nice to meet you.
So once again, a huge thank you to Rosie for taking some time out of the busy gathering and sitting down with me in the hotel dining room and sharing some conversation with me. It was very nice to meet you, Rosie. I really enjoyed talking to you and also getting to try some of your amazing guitars. If you look up Rosie's content, you'll find some guitar playing excerpts done by the amazing Michael Watts. Michael has been to Rosie's workshop, I believe twice, and he's put out some luthier stories with Rosie, and his video, unlike mine, is usable and fun to watch. So check that out if you are of a mind. Moving on to a little bit more housekeeping just before we go. I have been taught by all of the social media mentoring and coursework that I've been looking at that I need to put out a call to action at the end of my content. So that is precisely what I am going to do. If you are a luthier or you are a guitar player and you would like some help with your social media, then please get in touch. It would be amazing to work with you. One of the offerings I will be putting out there for UK-based luthiers and players is content creation. I know that my video work for this particular broadcast was not good enough to put out, but it has got better, as you will hopefully see from some of the videos that follow this particular recording. And I would be more than happy to come with my camera equipment and my audio equipment and spend some time with you in your workshop or in your studio and create some content for you. It can be photographs, it can be audio, it can be interviews, it can be video, any kind of content that would be worthwhile to put out for you on your channel. In this day, social media is vitally important for marketing, and it's still a bit of a black art, I have to say. Having just gone through all of these courses that I've done, learning about search engine optimization and how to grow your brand through organic content and through paid traffic, it's a full-time job. And I know that you're busy with your music or with your woodworking or whatever it is that you're doing. So if you would like to have a chat with me, please do get in touch. That would be amazing. You can find me by going to camssocial.media. So I've got myself a fancy new style top level domain there, a .media domain. And you can contact me through there, or of course you'll get me on all the socials as well. So I am Camuel on Instagram, so that's like Samuel but with a C. And same on Twitter, you'll get me on Twitter. Or Facebook, you can find my page, which is Cam's Social Media Marketing. So with all of that said, I thank you very much for lending me your ears, and I look forward to bringing you some more content in the very near future. Thanks for listening. Bye.